Welcome, everybody, to this meeting of the Concord Municipal Light Board. We have an action-packed agenda today, a lot to cover, so we'll just jump into it. Um, First, I want to point out that in the month of October, we're going to need a second meeting. The first meeting, which will take place at our regularly scheduled time, will focus on what to do with those ETS customers when we go to time of day rates, and then we'll need a second meeting to cover other business, including projections for the coming year. Um, but we will deal with setting, oh, Bianca's here too. Jason, did you have a time to propose for the second meeting?
Yes, I think the last week in October was ideal for us. I think you were saying the week of the 20th was not ideal for you. Is that,
Right.
yeah. So the week of the
So
7th, so potentially the 29th, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday that week.
So I was going to ask the board, are you available on Wednesday, October 29th?
Yes, I get on a plane the next day, but I'm free the
Oh,
29th.
really? How about Chris and Bianca? Are you available on that day?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that works. That works great.
I was just
Bianca,
checking. Yeah,
okay.
that should be fine. Yeah.
Okay, good. So that will be our second meeting in the month of October, October 29th. And John, I know there was some confusion on minutes. Do you have minutes to propose that we approve?
I do, yes. I distributed yesterday evening, and apologies for not giving people more time to review, but yesterday evening minutes for our August 13th meeting, and if there are no comments or suggested edits, I'd propose, I'd offer a motion that we approve those minutes.
Is there a second? Chris, okay. And does anybody have any comments on those minutes?
I haven't had a chance to review them, so I'm going to abstain.
I also haven't had a chance to review them, although, well, I guess I should abstain. I was happy to go
Well,
along.
so let's hold off on approving the minutes to the next meeting because people haven't had a chance to review them. And we'll have also the Oc- August 28th minutes to approve then. So we'll have, plus today's meeting, next time we'll have 3 minutes to approve. Okay? Thank you very much. And Jason, let me turn it over to you for your report.
Absolutely. Thank you. First, I want to welcome Jennifer Clordy, who is our new customer service manager. She is on this call, and we're super excited to have her be a part of the team. She's got over 25 years of experience leading a very large customer service team at a big software company, and we're really thrilled to have her and excited about the experience and expertise that she brings to the role. So I'm happy to introduce her to the board. So welcome, Jennifer.
Welcome.
Yeah. So speaking of the customer service team, they continue to work closely with Public Works to help spin up the stormwater and solid waste recycling utilities that are going to be merged in our NISC environment. This takes a lot of work and effort on our part to ensure that the billing works well and the bill print needs to be modified. The Public Works team is trying to work with NASC on that, but there's obviously a lot of coordination that needs to happen with us for our bill cycles to make sure that everything is running smoothly. And this is probably one of the biggest changes since broadband was billed for our billing team. Today at 1 p.m. is the bid opening for the middle school solar project. We're really excited and hopeful that we get, some competitive bids. And I let the assistant school superintendent know and invited him to the bid opening if he wished to attend. And we'll be coordinating the scheduling of everything closely with the schools to make sure that they're comfortable with the schedule. and we'll be able to provide more information, obviously, at the next meeting. In terms of the solar and potential battery at the landfill, that project continues to move forward. We are working in earnest on that project, and we have filed a PP5 with the ISO New England to get the study going for the battery and determine what, sorts of considerations need to be given for the impact on the greater distribution system. And so it's a really exciting step that we've taken. And we'll be working with a consultant hired by the developer to help prepare for that and kind of guide us through that process. The energy management staff worked with Energy New England to make the Drive and Save EV savings and comparison tool more user-friendly. And in August, they released a campaign trying to publicize that and got over 100 customers using that new updated tool. And I think that it's going to really steer people to the programs that we offer and hopefully drive further adoption of EVs in Concord, which are already very high. The commercial charging station rebate has also been updated to make it a little bit more user-friendly as well. And then the team was at the Ag Day this past weekend, really publicizing the Connected Homes program and trying to get people aware of and excited about that. And so I really appreciate the effort from staff who were working there. The engineering team last week, I think it was last week or the week before, hosted SEL, who's the vendor that we've selected for our SCADA rollout. They were on site for 3 days, and they were at substations doing a lot of measurements. Basically, we have equipment that's kind of rack mounted, and they are basically taking components out and adding new components in, and those components need to fit, and they need to understand how things are connected. And they have all the CAD drawings and all the materials that we have from when they were designed and built originally, but because of the production time and work involved in doing this, they like to verify everything. So it was a kind of a good step, and nice to see some faces in here related to that project. And I appreciate the engineering team's time on focusing on that to keep that project moving. We expect that, basically a year from now, we'll hopefully be turning everything on and finishing up in Q3 or Q4. And then the last thing I want to mention was that CMLP staff had a mental health training that happened at our all-staff meeting in the month of August, and it was really well received. I heard from several staff members directly that they really appreciated that. We have many staff who work in very demanding positions, both physically and emotionally, when you consider the customer interactions and the stress that happens. And many people who are putting their lives on the line every day to provide safe and reliable electricity for the residents and businesses in this town. And so it's really important that we acknowledge that stress that is on people and make sure that they understand about the resources that are available to them, and also that we care about that component of their health. That I think the trainer likes to say that we as a society do really well when the injury is below the neck, but above the neck, we don't like to talk about it. So I really appreciate everybody's engagement at that, and I'm happy that it seemed to have such a positive effect on people. So I'll pause there and see if there are any questions, Warren, from the board.
Any questions from the board? Hearing none, let's go on to the broadband report.
Great. I'm going to be giving that today as Dale's unavailable. Just a few updates. We have received now all of the equipment for our next generation deployment of broadband equipment that we ordered several months ago. Staff are now working on racking that, verifying power requirements and all of that. So the goal really is to kind of cut over to this system before Thanksgiving. That time kind of from Thanksgiving to the new year is often a time where other vendors and those who would give us support have kind of inconsistent time schedules. And so historically, when you're doing a big project like this, you try not to target those times. But everything is going well. There was actually a maintenance window this morning. It had very limited impact and went very smoothly. So I thank Ahmed, our senior network engineer, who was on site at 4 a.m. or earlier than 4 a.m. to do that work. And we really have just about one more piece of equipment we need to connect before we're able to cut over to the new equipment. And we do have the vendor coordinating all of that with us, and they will be both on site and connected virtually while we do everything. the approach that we took and that was designed was intended to be very user-friendly and create as little impact as possible during a single maintenance window instead of doing it in stages and having it have repeated impact. So I'll be really excited about that. Once we go live, there'll be a whole new host of service offerings that we'll have in broadband. We've also made some good deployment on our new Wi-Fi equipment. It's proving very popular with customers. We hadn't really upgraded the equipment that's in customer homes in a very long time, and we are now using the latest technology in terms of coverage and access, and it's really helping in those tricky locations where Wi-Fi coverage has been spotty. Those people who have been doing some of the early testing have been very pleased with the reach that it has. And once Wi-Fi is really managed by Concord Broadband, there will be fewer truck rolls and support calls because we can have kind of visibility into the coverage. Right now, oftentimes we are recommending to customers that they purchase their own equipment and augment the service through extenders and other things. And the problem comes when we don't know where the problem lies. Is it with the customer equipment? Is it with ours? So everybody benefits when it's kind of more centralized. And it's also just one more thing that keeps us in line with our competitors in terms of service offerings because managed Wi-Fi is a service that they offer. And then finally, I just want to mention that the team has been working on getting network access to the Peabody School. That was turned over to the town earlier this year and is inhabited by the facilities department, really just to keep occupancy for insurance purposes. But it's definitely a need to connect that to our town network and make sure that all of the normal access at a town building is provided for, and that really requires kind of fiber and wiring from the technicians as well as the network engineer time to make sure the equipment is there and set up properly. So they've been doing a lot of work on that project as well. So I'll pause there and see if there's any other questions.
Remind me, the equipment you're putting in customer homes for Wi-Fi, is there a fee to the customer for that? I don't think there is.
Sorry, I had to take a sip of
That's
water.
all right.
So
it's
today, the $150 installation fee covers both the equipment and the roughly $1,000 to $1,500 of work and equipment that we need to set up one new customer. Our plan is to continue to provide basic equipment for people at no charge for that installation. We are looking at, through our work on the financial model, at offering other equipment. So for example, you may wish to have multiple pieces of equipment in a mesh, or you may need something that's even bigger than the average offering, which is still a dramatic improvement over what we did in the past. And for those customers, we're considering offering an option to sort of upgrade or to pay for additional pieces of equipment. So we're not going to give you 10 pieces of equipment for free, but we'll definitely, for the basic installation, give you kind of not the top tier, but basically one level below that in terms of equipment. And then if you really need that bigger one because you've got a 5,000 square foot house or something, or you have 4 stories and you need it to really penetrate through, then that will be offered at a modest cost, on top of what the installation cost already is.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Sounds like some good progress is being made there. Well, let's go into the next part of the meeting, and we need a motion to enter into a rate hearing. Would somebody like to make that motion?
I'm bad at these, read the exact language
I mean,
motions.
the motion just would be to suspend the regular meeting, open a rate hearing, and that's really all you kind of need to say.
Okay. Well, I move that we suspend the regular meeting and open up a rate hearing to discuss many of the rates that we manage.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I see Chris.
Chris, thank. And Bianca?
Oh,
Great,
I don't
great.
think she can unmute.
And Chris? And John?
Yeah, he says yes.
And Brian?
Yes.
And I say yes as well. So we are now in the midst of the rate hearing. We have discussed these rates at several previous meetings. There may be issues we need to raise. We need to review what's being proposed, and we also want to make sure we leave time for public comments before we vote on anything. Laura, should I turn it over to you?
1 second, I'm just allowing her to unmute. And I'm probably, Laura, do you want to share your screen or do you want me to share my screen for the?
If you could go ahead and share your screen, that would be great.
Okay. And I believe I'm just at the very first one in the packet.
Okay, so thank you. What we're looking at here is the not the opt-out rate, is going to be the default time of day rate that all customers will be transitioned to from our current R1 rate unless they notify us that they do not wish to be. At Brian's request, we've changed the name of this rate. No, sorry, not this one. This one is called RTOD, Residential Time of Day. And not much has changed from our discussions. We're still looking at the same $20 per month meter charge that we have today. Remember, this rate is revenue neutral. These are the all-in, meaning they include energy, capacity, transmission, and distribution for each of the time periods that we've discussed, for each of the seasons. And you may recall the seasons are, we've got some special shoulder seasons that are March, April, and October, November. And then the rest of the year, other than the shoulder seasons, are called standard. If you scroll down just a little bit, Jason, we can remind people what the hours are that are associated with these different time periods. The peak would be based on the recommendation of the consultant, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. The super off peak would be 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. And then regular off peak would be all the other hours that are not peak or super off peak. Are there any questions about this rate?
Just the time periods for weekends during the weekday peaks is not covered in your language here.
Yes, that is an excellent point. And this happened because I had 4 lines in this originally. And the consultant said to me, oh, the 4th line is a repetition. If you just change off-peak to Monday through Sunday, that will mean that you don't need the 4th line. And I'm sorry to say that I took their advice and I did that. And then I realized, no, I didn't realize, Brian pointed out that doesn't work. And so, yes, we need to change that back. And I would like to show you what the original language was.
I got to give the credit to Jim Terry, a former board member.
Terry, okay. Just give me 1 second, Brian, to get to that. So I can show that to you.
I made you co-host, Laura, if you want to share your screen, if you want me to stop sharing.
Okay, that's great.
I don't see Laura moving. Oh, you are.
Yes, Laura is
I was wondering if you froze.
Fine. Okay. So let me see. I just have to figure out how to share it here. Share at the bottom. Okay. Share screen. So the only thing I want you to look at on this screen is these hours. Okay. This is what I'm proposing. We replace what is in the R1 schedule with. So the off-peak would be described as Monday through Friday for the non-peak and super off-peak period. And then off-peak on Saturday and Sunday would be defined as all hours except 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. So the 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. on the weekend would still be the super off-peak price, and all the others would be off-peak. There would be no 3 to 7 p.m. period on the weekends.
Can you, so that new line that says Saturday and Sunday, could you change that to be all week and get rid of the other off-peak? Because all hours except those listed above might
Well,
be,
all hours except those listed above might be a little confusing.
well, yeah, you could, but it still says that, Monday through Friday is peaks, and then Monday through Saturday or Sunday is super off peak. So that if you change the all hours except those listed above and got rid of the first off peak line, I think that would cover it.
I see what you're saying, I think. So you just define peak and super off peak, and then everything else is off peak.
Correct. But this is wordsmithing. I'll let you, whatever gets to the point that we all agree on, that's fine
Yeah.
with me. If it takes 4 lines, if it takes 10, I don't care.
Okay. So, Laura, do you want to go on to other rates?
Yes, the next rate,
Yep, let me share again.
And Laura,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm going to save that. Never mind.
I did my best to copy what you just had on the screen, Laura, and this just so that when people refer to the rate. Okay,
I
so
appreciate that. Thank you.
the opt-out.
Okay, so the next rate is the opt-out rate, and this is the one that I changed the name of because Brian asked for it. This had originally been, I think, the R1 rate. And in our system, it'll probably still be the R1 rate, but from a customer-facing perspective, it's going to be known as rate opt-out. This one has the $20 per month customer charge. And then, based on the vote at the last meeting to make the distribution charge equal to what was called pure distribution in the cost of service study, plus 1 point, I think it was 083 or 038 rec cost, but not including the 3 cents of over market. So this distribution could have been 12 cents. The lowest was 8, and the board decided that the distribution would be the distribution adder would be the distribution plus the rec fee, so 9.183 cents. And then these other rates work out to be about a 4% higher rate on average for customers than if they were on the TOD rate. So customers who choose this opt-out can expect to pay about 4% higher than they would under the TOD rate.
Now, does that 4% assume the load curve or a flat load curve?
When you say the load curve, you mean what the expected shape of the R1 load is?
The load curve, the average load curve of a resident is what the old R1 was set on. And is this a comparison of the average of the TOD compared to this rate being a flat rate, which is so because when we consume electricity is a big factor in what is on par with this rate.
Right. So when we say, when we do the comparison to generate the 4% higher product, what we're comparing is a customer's expected load shape under TOD. So some peak hours, some off, some super off, based on the load data that we had collected a year's worth from the new meters.
Okay, so not
So-
a flat load.
No, not a flat load. It's we're assuming the hourly load shape. And then let's say we are comparing, someone who uses 657 kilowatt hours, then we would compare that TOD shape against this number, which is run through the tiers, but for 657. So
And you come up with 4% higher.
yes, yes.
Okay, that's great. That's
But the one clarification on that, Laura, is that it's my understanding, and we went back and forth about this, that when we had the projection of the impact of time of day rates on customers, some customers would see significant reductions in their bills. Some customers would see increases in their bills. And these rates are on average 4% higher than time of day. But there are some customers who actually may do better on the opt-out rate than they would on time of day because they happen to be one of those customers who is going to see their bills go up. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, so I would say someone who uses a small amount and uses that small amount during on-peak hours is probably going to be better off under the opt-out rate than they would under the TOD rate.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So, but it's still the way these rates were set does seem appropriate. Bianca.
Yeah, so I had a question. So the way that I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. With under the time of day rate, the rates include distribution charge, energy charge, whatever the charges are, right? And under the opt-out rate, there is a separate the distribution and or there's just like capacity and transmission, distribution and energy charge are all separate. Will be broken out separately, but under time of day, it's going to be one standard rate, all inclusive of all those three.
That is correct. And one of the reasons we did that was for simplicity purposes, that all-in rate under TOD is composed of these components.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a tiered capacity and transmission element. It's got a flat capacity and transmission element, but it does include all those categories. It's just that with the different seasons and the different hours, it was just too many numbers, really to throw at people. And to be honest with you, most of the rate questions I get today, even, under our current R1 rate, it's very confusing for people to know what they're ultimately paying, like, because they have to add all these together. Like, we don't list anywhere what the total is.
Oh, I completely, I am fully on board with making things more clear. I just want to make sure that I know what I'm looking at. And just so that I understand, it looks like do we have it? If I'm understanding this correctly, we're now pretty much on par with Eversource in terms of pricing.
No, this is a revenue neutral rate. Well, not the opt-out, it's 4% higher, but we're much cheaper than 4% under Eversource. So even at 4% higher, it would be cheaper than Eversource.
We're like 25, 30% less than Eversource.
Brian, you had another point. You had your hand up.
Yeah. So when I left the last meeting, I thought that the distribution charge would be moved to the 8.3 and that the RECs would be collected in the energy charge. And so I think this is not what I had hoped we would do, because when you look at the distribution charge, that is collecting for the operations of the light plant. It's not for collecting RECs. And we should be putting that in the energy charge. So I would like to see the same amount, the same price total kilowatts, but I would like to see the 8 cents in the distribution charge and that REC collected in the energy charge. I saw that the adjustment was a 3-cent adjustment to lower the transmission and capacity fees and to raise the distribution an equivalent amount.
Hey, Brian, can we recognize that point, hold off on the discussion of it till we get to the next rate about solar so that you could explain how you would see the change taking place there as well. So before we discuss this, all the board members understand the implication of your recommendation, not just for the opt-out, but for solar compensation. Okay, anything else on this rate before we move on?
So I want to just go back to to the pricing here. I mean, it to me does not make, if we're looking at this, so between this, the all in, the opt out rate, if you go with the highest, with energy, is, you know what, I'm not going to say anything anymore. That's it. I'm not going to say anything anymore. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And Laura, the average kilowatt hour cost, if you were to say a single value for kilowatt hour in this rate, what would that be? Is it 20.5 cents or?
Well, it depends on how much you use, right?
Yeah,
In
like
a month.
900 is our average customer, correct?
835.
Oh, all right.
So if we just took the tier 2, 658 to 835, it would be 22.3 cents.
Okay. All right. So on average, with the time of day rate, we're expecting it to cost 22.2 cents, something 4% difference between the 22.3.
Well, so tier 1 would be 20, just a little over 21 cents, 21.017 would be tier 1, and tier 2 would be, but you'd have some tier 1 as well. So the prices are going to be around 21.5 cents versus the time of day, which is, as you know, blended based on the time of day, but is 4% lower basically than that number.
Okay. Yeah. I can see in prior when we had talked about the opt-out, it was assuming an analog meter, an additional $20 truck roll, which was not punitive. It was collecting for cost, maybe even under collecting. But that made this rate clearly more expensive than the time of day. And I don't know if 4% is going to really take a customer who is fearful of change and make them comfortable that they're going to save more under time of day. I think they may just run to this. I think this is going to become more popular than it should, is my concern. But
I'll say, just to, looking at this right now, I will be one of the opt-out customers.
Yeah.
I just don't think that there is enough. And I mean, I voiced my opinion earlier that I just didn't think there was enough incentive in the time of day. The rates, I'm looking at some Eversource bills and we're pretty much on par. I don't know if there's some hidden charges that they have, but with the time of day, the way it is, like Eversource looks like it's actually cheaper. So I'm not. Anyway, I voiced my opinion earlier that I thought that the super off peak needed to be something, needed to be incentivized. And I just don't think that the super off peak, the way it is here, pretty much for me would be on par with the, opt out rate. So I just don't see why I should switch, or I would switch.
Can I share the most recent MWEC rate comparison?
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I bring that, so this, the most recent we have is Q2. The latest month in Q2 is June. So this is for a residential customer who uses 250, which is a very low amount. We are near the top of the stack.
I don't think.
Are you sharing your screen? We don't
Oh,
see
I'm
it.
not sharing my screen. I'm sorry. I thought I was sharing my screen. I could see it.
Now you're
Oh, I will.
started. Okay.
Okay. This is for a customer, a residential customer uses 250 kilowatt hours. You can see Concord is near the top of the stack. But compared to Eversource Boston bill would expected to be $91, and CMLP's bill is just under $70. They also do comparisons for customers who use larger amounts. So this is a 500 kilowatt, customer uses 500 kilowatt hours in a month. And we actually are, we drop down in the stack a little bit as the volume goes up. And so Eversource Boston would be 170 and Concord would be 120. And for 750, 252 versus 173. And for 1,000 kilowatt hours, it would be $334 versus $232. So that's the most recent data we have. Q3 numbers could look a little different, but I would not expect CMLP's prices to get anywhere near Eversource's numbers. I don't expect to see a drop from them down to our numbers. Does that help?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's informative. I think, you know, from my perspective, it's a little, given that we are, you know, a municipal light plant, I think that we can be doing better on, especially on things like this in terms of incentives. And I just, I don't see that. I see Eversource beating us on that, in terms of, I mean, also with Eversource, there's a lot of, I mean, being a solar customer under Eversource seems like a better deal than being a solar provider or having solar panels here in Concord, for a variety of bonuses and pluses that they offer that we don't. And they can do that where they're large, we can't. But I just, yeah,
But what are you proposing?
well, I think that the super off peak should be something closer. I think one of the rates that I recall coming up as an option was the one that was going to be more like 16 cents per kilowatt hour under the super off peak to really,
That's
you know,
in phase 2, Bianca.
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it is the issue that I mean, you're raising a good point, but the issue is we decided to go with a gradual transition to time of day rates. And in this first year, the differences between peak and off peak are not that great to get people used to the concept, in the hope that when we go to the full time of day rate in the year 2027, that people would be prepared for it and they won't gag when they see the high peak hour rate, and they will, at that time, they will applaud the low super off-peak rate. But we did decide to go with a gradual transition to time of day. And, you know, the fact of the matter is the analysis of the numbers is the analysis, and what the consultants have said is that the average customer will do about 4% better under time of day than they will under this opt-out rate. That's not going to hold for everybody, but most customers are going to do better by opting into the time of day rate. And that is without them taking any action. If they take action to move away from the on-peak hours, they'll do better. Any other comments on the opt-out rate before we look at other rates? Okay. If Laura, you could go on to some of the other rates in the packet.
The next one is what used to be called the net metering with banking rate. and we're proposing to call this the net billing rate, since we're moving from a methodology of net metering to net billing. And initially my proposal to put text on this rate, since it is a rider, was simply to say all kilowatt hours delivered by CMLP, this is under rates and credit section, to the customer under this rate will be billed at the residential time of day rate according to the hours in which the energy is delivered. All kilowatt hours delivered by the customer to CMLP under this rate will be credited the appropriate residential time of use rate minus the rate charged for distribution shown in rate tariff opt-out. This is what the language I believe that Brian had posed to make sure there was a one-to-one correspondence between the two rates. Now, that is all I was going to put on the tariff sheet. That may leave some solar people to wonder, well, what exactly are the charges for each direction of energy? So we could put these rates on here. This is exactly what the text says. It's the rates above are exactly what's in the TOD rate, and the rates below are the TOD rate minus that 0.09 cents. But with a rider, there becomes a question, what if there was a discrepancy between the two? What if one set of rates got updated and the other one didn't? How would those legally conflict? It's sort of better legal practice to not repeat the rates, but I understand for customer understanding that customers may want to see these rates. So that's why I put this in red for the board to consider, to weigh the pros and cons of whether including this language, the potential legal problems are outweighed by the benefits the customer would see and understanding exactly what the rates will be.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, so the statement that is at there saying it's less distribution, that is what I wanted, but it isn't what is represented. What it's representing is distribution and that 1 penny for RECs. So the statement isn't correct, and it is correct because the previous comment I had about that distribution fee being 9 cents is too high. In the slide that we had at our meeting, that was 8,145, not the 9 cents. And so I'd rather this say that it's less distribution and less the cost to purchase a REC, and then state on here that if you're in the REC donation program, you get that REC value credited to you. But Warren wants to have a more in-depth discussion about that change at a future meeting. But that is what I prefer, is when a solar customer looks at this tariff, this rider, they can understand that, oh, if I get a little bit more incentive if I provide my RECs directly to the utility, and seeing as I'm doing nothing with them, or my aggregator doesn't work with me because they're not high enough value, I can get, $100 a year through this by setting up those donations, and all ratepayers benefit because we're getting them cheaper than we would going out and purchasing them. So I'd like to see solar customers read this and they go, oh, I could donate RECs and get higher value.
So, Brian, there are two different issues here you're raising. One is whether we should be adding language in here about the REC donation program. I would prefer, I don't think we're actually prepared to do that till we actually have a full discussion about how that program would work. There's the other issue, which does seem the more time sensitive we have to decide about, is whether we keep the language here the way it is and go back to the time of day rate, keep it the way it is, or, to the opt-out rate, excuse me, or whether in the opt-out rate we move that REC fee from distribution to energy, and here put a notification making it clear that the solar customers are not getting credit for RECs when they sell their power.
I prefer the latter and then deal with the
Yeah.
topic at the future meeting.
Yeah, yeah. And so I'm curious for other comments from other boards, what you think about Brian's proposal for moving that rec um, charge to energy rather than distribution. But Chris, you may have a different point. You've had your hand up.
I'm just asking a clarifying, excuse me, a clarifying question. This is my first time through this process as a member of the light board. So what are our opportunities to come back and adjust these numbers later on? So, you know, to Brian's point, if we're going to discuss later about some of these things, is it okay to, in 2 or 3 months, come back and change some of these, or are we stuck with something for a specific period of time once we approve it here?
Just a quick
Jason.
clarification, I'm not asking to change the numbers on this rate that's here. I'm asking to change the language of what those numbers mean. But I think we could change rates at any moment we wish.
Yes, I think that the complication is that when we're trying to program the system for handling new time of day rates and we're trying to communicate to customers, we don't want to keep changing that, you know, over time. And I think our next topic is going to be talking about the schedule and how we do that customer outreach and what our messaging is. I think that tweaking things that don't affect time of day are probably less concerning. I think voting time of day things now and then in a month or two changing it, I think is going to send a lot of confusing signals to customers. I mean, it can be legally changed by the board, yes, but I think that if the goal is for clarity, I think that changing the time of day from the time that we start implementing it until when it goes live could be confusing to customers.
But yeah, but I don't think that's the rate where we're talking about there possibly being
Right.
an alteration. It's either the opt-out or the solar. Chris, are you done with your comment or anything else?
Is good.
He's on.
Okay, Bianca.
I think
Oh,
he's.
wait, Chris wants to be unmuted.
Yeah,
Right.
you know, follow up. Sorry, I muted and then now I was locked out. So we're already built in a phase 2 that's happening at some point, and it looks like based on this discussion, we're going to talk about the timing of some of these things. So, you know, so my sense here is that for the most part, what I'm seeing on the screen is great. Let's do this and then see how it goes, and then we can adjust in phase 2.
Thank you. Bianca.
Yeah, so I wanted to just comment on I think clarity, as Jason pointed out, is super important. And I think we do need to state where these things are coming from, especially because when we go back to discuss it, there shouldn't be a question about like, oh, it was an energy charge. Oh, no, it was a rec charge. Oh, no, it was, you know, some other thing. We need to just make it super clear that we are charging solar customers 1 cent for the recs. And you know, my larger point, which I didn't get to make at the last meeting, was that I think that we're nickeling and diming the solar customers. You know, if we're talking about them turning over, donating the recs, let's say I consume 90% of the power that I make with, you know, with the solar panels, and I'm transferring or putting back on the grid only 10%, but I'm donating 100% of my recs. You know, I'm not saying that, you know, and again, I don't think the nickeling and diming is where we should be headed for this. Like, definitely, like, let's have everybody donate the recs to CMLP. But when you're transferring the power back over to CMLP to, you know, to give over what you're not using, I just, you know, this stuff is, you know, it drives me crazy, and it gets into discussions that I think at the end of the day are meaningless in terms of the actual dollars. You know, we're talking about buying solar energy from large producers at a pretty high price. And then when it comes to the residential customers, it's just like these, you know, we try to get it right to the last half cent. And it just, I think it's overall not a productive use of time. But so, and I think we can't hide it. You know, I think we need to put it in there. It shouldn't be hidden in energy charge or some other charge. It should be really super clear that we are actually charging solar producers a rec.
I wouldn't say, Bianca, that we're charging them for the rec. They're not giving us the rec, and so we're not giving them the value for the rec. It's sort of the other way around.
Well, I think that in the communication, I think if we have, and I understand your point, Laura. You know, we don't want to double charge. I understand the double accounting, right? You're producing something and you're not buying. You're the customer selling the rec out into the marketplace. It's then going to have to be purchased by CMLP in order for it to be made whole. But what I'm thinking, but the broader point that I'm making is that solar customers represent a very small portion of the overall energy portfolio that we have. And if if we create a program where you can donate, I think especially for those that are not on the really high incentive program with the new program with the RECs, it's pennies. I think donating it to CMLP makes total sense. But if we're going to get down to, if we're going to spend the time to be super calculating in terms of like exactly how many, watt hours did you send over, and we're going to charge a cent for that, then it needs to be even more tightened up. And I'm not sure that what I mean by that is the actual amount that you send over to CMLP is the portion that you donate, not the total value of all of your solar production. So what I'm saying is, like, on that point, like, it just, the calculation is onerous, time consuming, and at the end of the day, not super relevant if you take into account that I think, as far as I remember, our residential solar production is about maybe 10% of our portfolio. So it's just not meaningful. And if we were to make an error in calculation in terms of how many RECs we were actually going to buy or not buy because of the solar customers, I don't think that it would make a real impact on our overall sustainable goals.
There were thank you, Bianca. There are two different issues here, and let me deal with the first one first. Bianca is in effect suggesting we revisit the decision the board made last time about what to charge what credits solar customers get when they sell power to CMLP. And you made the case for revisiting that. Are there any other board members who want to revisit that discussion?
I don't disagree with the vote we took last time, but the implementation in these rates,
Yeah, well, that's the second
Okay.
question I was going to come to, is unless there's a board member who wants to revisit what we were saying last time, then Bianca, you voted against this approach last time. You've made the case for it. I don't hear other board members who want to revisit that.
And
Then there were
Yeah, okay.
Then there is the issue that Brian and Bianca have raised about the time of day opt-out rate and the solar charge, being clear that the charge for RECs is in energy rather than distribution. Does any board member have, I mean, I've heard from at least Brian and Bianca that they would argue for moving that to energy, making it clear on the solar tariff there that they were going to be charged for the RECs. Are there any board members who disagree with the approach that Brian was saying? Brian.
I just want to clarify. So when we talked before about the change didn't happen. It was taken out of the capacity and energy capacity and transmission charges. So those changed by 3 cents. to make the distribution the 9 cents. So I would actually not change the energy charge, but just not move the rec collection out of capacity and transmission. So on this
Oh, so
here,
you don't want it down here in energy, you want it up in the,
yes, because it just corrects the change, the most recent change that was made in between the meetings.
okay, because you definitely said in the energy charge. That's why.
Right. I said that because that is where recs should be collected, but that was the issue, is that the opt-out rate is collecting for recs in the distribution, but it's already collecting for it in the energy charge. And so the the fudge factor was used of the capacity and transmission values. And so I'm just correcting the fudge factor that was going on.
So you're suggesting putting it up above under capacity and
Yeah.
transmission?
Not because
Okay.
recs belong there, but because the last adjustment took it from there.
Okay. So
Is there any
Do-
way to make it more clear and just put another line item so that if we have this discussion again, which seems like it might come up, that we can go directly to that and it just simplifies the
well,
discussion?
we'd make it clear on the solar.
We've already had a board vote on where the recs should be, and that was determined to go into the energy charge. So we'd have to reverse that vote.
I'm just saying, like, to just list it out. Where is it going to be listed out? Just so that we understand everything that goes into the energy charge or the just, somewhere. So that, because this is already confusing.
Right, I think Brian wants to put it back to how it was before, and if it was confusing before, it's still the same level of confusing.
Yes.
So Brian, I think you're saying put the 1.038 cents in these buckets so that you would end up with these rates.
John or Chris, do either of you have an opinion on this?
So, I mean, just so I'm clear that I understand, I mean, the net effect of that would be to reverse the decision we made previously, right?
No, it
Yes.
doesn't change the value that we're collecting. So the 8145 is what we're collecting for distribution for residents. It's in the TOD, it's here, it's clear that that is funding the operations of the light plant. The energy charge is funding the generation we buy and the RECs and the clean energy. And the capacity and transmission is those fees, but done in a tiered system, and so it's confusing. But what happens is in the old sheets, when we wanted to hit a certain price per kilowatt, the rounding errors and the last minute adjustments all happen in transmission capacity. And so when it got updated between the meetings, 3 cents went from capacity and transmission to distribution to correct for RECs and the increased distribution fee. That's what I'm trying to fix.
So this proposed change would not affect people's bills at all. It's only where the numbers are showing up.
Right.
Correct.
John's point is saying that if last month and on the August 26th meeting, the board voted to set the distribution charge at this rate inclusive of the rec, that would not this be a change in the previous vote?
It would,
Right.
but I don't think that was not my understanding of that vote. So I haven't looked over the minutes and gone over the recording, but we can argue about that later if you wish.
But and doesn't this have implications in terms of the credit that solar customers would receive?
No, not if we change the statement on the net billing rider to say that it's less the distribution and rec. And then list out there what distribution is and what the rec is, according to the slide we saw on August 8th.
So Brian,
August 13th.
change this language here.
Yes.
So these numbers he's fine with, but
Cool.
he just wants to explain that the calculation is not picking the distribution shown here, but
Yeah.
so
And I'm hoping that in a future discussion, we'll add to this rate that if you donate your Rex, you can avoid you can get an extra penny because you have provided Rex to CMLP. And so your credits will go up, but that could be a separate line item. That would be the change in the value of this, only for those participating in that program, and then potentially get rid of the donate programs that we have and just have it here on this rate tariff. But I'm
Okay.
jumping ahead, Warren, to that future discussion.
Yeah. So is there any board member who disagrees with this idea of making it clear on this solar billing page that the credits they're getting does not include distribution and RECs? Okay, hearing none, I think we're okay with the approach that Brian is suggesting. Can we go on to some of the other tariff sheets here? I mean, rate sheets, excuse me.
I have to say, I'm not entirely clear how I would adjust these sheets. I think I understand what he's saying on the solar net billing rate. I'm not entirely clear. I understand what the directive is on the opt-out and TOD rates.
Jason had a good little Excel sheet that showed the opt-out changes, and it was just putting back the penny in capacity and transmission and setting distribution at the 8145.
Okay,
So the net collection is still the same per kilowatt.
okay. So the rate EVSM is a rate that the board developed in order to try to help customers who are using the time of day rate solely to charge an electric vehicle, and they need or want to do that through a second meter. So this is exactly the same as the TOD rate that we saw first, but the meter charge is reduced from $20 per month to $9 per month.
Do you need to restate the rate, or could you simply reference that the TOD rate applies with the change in the meter fee or the meter charge?
We could check with council about that. The methodologies that other utilities have used to offer lower meter fees for second meter uses were all done as not as riders, but as separate tariffs for electric vehicle charging. So
I'm
that's
okay
why
with
that's the way we structured it the way it is.
I think we have to. I think that if it's a rider, then we don't. If it's a separate tariff, we do.
okay. All right.
Okay,
So these are exactly the same as the time of day rates, right?
yeah, yes.
Just for the different meter charge.
But I do see the super off peak is being, oh no, I guess it's the same. All right, sounds good.
So a customer that has a separate, like say their garage is separated from their house and they have 2 meters, they're still going to pay the same per kilowatt fees, but they're going to pay an extra $9 a month for that second meter. And that's all this does.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same hours, we would need to make the same change
Right here.
in those hours
Yeah,
to address
okay.
Terry's issue. Okay, the controlled water heater credit rider, when the consultant went through the proposed rates, their study suggested that the value of CMLP being able to control a customer's water heater is $7.31 a month. It's currently $10 a month. So this would be somewhat of a decrease, but that's what the cost of service study showed. So we've adjusted this rider to reflect that new credit.
And this is if they're eligible for this program.
Correct.
And Jim also had a question about heat pumps not being, like, heat pump water heaters are not eligible. Is it because of the technology, because they don't have the control module?
So it's because they are basically not using as much electricity. This $7.31 is a value based on CMLP being able to avoid, peak related expenses. And if it's not a full 5 kW, but only 1 kW or 2 kW, the value is not really there.
Okay, no, that's logical. Thank you.
Any other questions on that one?
Okay, small general service. These are the rates that the consultant recommended for the G1 rate. This one is actually a 2% increase from last year. It's not revenue neutral because the cost of service study showed that this rate class was under collecting. And so they just made a small adjustment upwards equal to 2%. It's really not very much at all. And they raised the customer charge from $20 to $24.
And there is no change to the structure in this rate. It's just an update in the values.
Yep.
Great.
And one thing for us to look at for not this year, but perhaps for next year, is whether we should be offering a time of day option for commercial customers. But we're not proposing that at the moment. Let's get the residential system underway first.
I believe the next one is the G2 rate. This rate class showed that they were over collecting. And so the adjustment here overall, including the increased meter charge and the volumetric fees, is actually a 2% reduction from what they're paying today. But the meter charge is an increase from $59 to $90. Again, because the consultant wants to move more fixed charges to a fixed collection. The demand rate is up because it's too low, and they're going to continue to move that towards cost of service. But the variable rates, the collection of all those elements of the bill still result in an average G2 customer seeing a 2% bill reduction.
Any questions?
Nothing else has changed about the way this rate is structured or the terms within it. And G3, the customer charge has increased from $477 to $600 a month. And their demand fee has also increased $1 per kW from $8.57 to $9.57. And then again, the totality of these elements for the average customer is a 2% bill increase from this year.
Sorry, bill increase or decrease?
Did I say increase? I should have said decrease.
Okay, thank you. I was gonna.
Sorry.
I picked up on that too. So the G1 customers are going to see a 2% increase. The G3 and 2 are going to see a 2% decrease.
Correct.
And residents are neutral.
Residents are neutral.
Yeah.
Correct. Except for people who opt out, and then they're going to be 4% higher.
Yeah.
And overall, the rates are meant to collect the same revenue as we targeted for last year. There's no planned increase in totality.
Laura, do we have the information we need to move these customers to time of day rates, or is that going to require another cost of service study?
You say these customers, you mean commercial customers?
Yes.
No, we're gonna need to do some more studying.
Yeah, a lot more studying. Yeah.
The other thing is we did install the commercial meters at the end of all of the residential meters. So at this time, we have the smallest data set on the commercial customers. But of course, in a year or so, we should have a full year for everybody. But we definitely targeted the residential because that had always been the board's preference, was to start with residential and then collect data and refine. And
Okay, this is the G4 electric vehicle charging rate. I almost didn't want to present you guys with this one, and maybe we take this out of the packet. I'm still going back and forth with the consultant. They proposed rates for this that were just too high to encourage the purpose of this rate schedule, I should say, is to encourage general service customers. That's nothing to do with residential, but business customers who want to charge electric vehicles. This was a rate that was meant to incentivize them to charge under this rate rather than under their regular general service rate schedule. So for example, a small general service customer who has a meter, let's say it's a bank, and the meter's in the building and they have room on their meter panel, they could install level 2 charging out in their parking lot for a couple of spaces and fit within their panel, right? And just charge and be charged by CMLP, the G1 rate, which has no demand fee and no time of day fee. If they do that, those customers have no incentive not to charge during the peak. And if you remember, adding electric vehicles to our system is not a win-win under 100% of the scenarios. An electric vehicle can make us $300 a year in gross margin, or it can cost us $1,500 a year if it charges during the peak every month. So we have to be very careful when we promote electric vehicles. We don't want them charging during the peak. So we were trying to create this rate to be able to be used by any general service customer where there would be a time of day component to encourage them not to charge during the peak. But that overall, this rate has to be more attractive than their general service rate, or they won't pick it.
So, Laura, this seems like a good idea, but I would think we should, as you were suggesting, maybe take this out of the packet until you are completely confident that these are the right rates we would be voting on.
Okay, I think that's a good idea, Warren.
Yeah, I would agree. I just opened up the current rate off the website, and these values are significantly higher. This is almost looks at a glance, it looks like it's doubling in fees. So
Yeah, so let's go. Let's not discuss it now. We'll come back to that, and we will not take any action on this rate today.
And keep in mind, we don't have any customers on this rate.
Right.
really, the wheelhouse didn't. Yeah.
John,
Yeah, I mean, one additional comment, it just based on what Laurel said about customers with EVs, I'm just wondering, understanding the opt-out rate, and if I was an EV customer and I wanted to charge my car when I came home and didn't want to be, bothered with having a time of day rate, based on what Laura's suggesting, if I was a commuter, I could be potentially causing the light plant $1,500 a year. Is there any opportunity here to have a provision within that rate if customers have an EV that there would be some supplemental charge?
that's an interesting idea.
Right.
Laura, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it might be difficult if we were going to make it a volumetric fee. Might be difficult for us to isolate on their meter exactly how many kilowatt hours were being used for electric vehicle charging and how many kilowatt hours were being used for other purposes.
Well, maybe one way to do it would be to increase that last block rate.
Which block rate were you talking about?
This is
Their
back
opt-out.
on the opt-out rate for residential customers.
But not all customers with EVs are large users, and some, even with an EV, actually stay under tier 1 or tier 2.
So can I suggest, I mean, I think this, John's raising a good point. I don't think we're able to deal with that today, but it would be, can we direct Laura and Jason to look at this and see if they want to come back with a recommendation for how to deal with EV customers who choose the opt-out rate, to give them some signal to not be charging during peak times?
Can I just step in here and say, I think we're doing this backwards. I mean, if we're doing this correctly, we don't need to be nickeling and diming everybody trying to isolate subgroups doing and behaviors. We already have an EV, you sign up, you get an EV, you sign up, you promise to, you do connected homes is already doing that. I mean, what are we trying to do? Hunt down the 5 people in town that have an EV that don't care? I think this is like a wholesale waste of time. If we're doing this correctly, the incentives are in place where everyone will want to change the time of day rate. If the incentives are not correct, if we haven't laid out the correct incentives, then CMLP is going to be penalized, and we need to address the bigger picture and not try to hunt down, 5 or 6 customers who may be benefiting from our lack of proper incentive alignments.
Well, I mean, I think we're creating the proper incentives. The issue is we are also giving people an option to opt out of time of day.
Correct. And if there are incentives then for a handful of customers who have not connected with, who are not part of the Connected Homes program, which, let's be clear, with Connected Homes, the CMLP is controlling when that car charges. So for the handful of people who have an EV and who happen to also not care whatsoever and don't want to be part of Connected Homes, don't want to take advantage of the rebate that we have that you promise to charge, at late at night, or just program your car to charge late at night, then we're spending this time to go hunt down those couple of people that are going to be benefiting from the time of day rate and don't care when they charge their car. Is that a good use of our time?
That's a good point. Well, in any case, we're not going to propose any new charge or incentive for EVs today. We could come back to that afterwards to see whether it's appropriate, but nothing is on the table today. And what's this last page here?
So this may be new to some of our board members. This is called the Power Cost Adjustment Clause. It does not reflect the credit or charge that customers see on their bills for CMLP's over or under collection of power expense charges. Rather, it defines the amount in rates that CMLP has set to collect for power expenses. And then every month, to the extent that CMLP pays more or less, that money is returned to ratepayers. CMLP must use power supply as a revenue neutral element of its budget, meaning if we think that power is going to cost us 12.969 cents for each customer, and it ends up costing us only 12 cents, that 9.69 tenths of a cent needs to be returned to customers. If power ends up costing us more than 12.9 cents, then we are allowed to collect an additional amount from customers to make that difference up. And so what this rate does is it sets that amount for the 2026 rates that has been assumed that we will pay for power. And every month CMLP will calculate in its accounting books how much more or less we spent. And that is put into something called a provision for rate refund. And that finds its way back to customers through the PCA charge.
Yeah, last time we really used this was when the Ukraine war happened and the cost of electricity jumped by a nickel. And we were able to say that it was a nickel based on that value in that rate.
And we used it most recently right now. If you see your CMLP bills, if you get a CMLP bill, you'll see there's actually a 0.4 cent credit that's been on the bills since the beginning of 2025. That's because in 2024, power ended up costing us less than what we had assumed in rates. And so we're returning that to ratepayers through that mechanism.
So, any questions about that? And that's the last page, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
So, I need to apologize. We're going to turn to public comments in a second. I need to apologize to Brad Hubbard Nelson and Fran Cummings. We're not going to get to network geothermal today. I also need to say we're not going to get to the time of day implementation schedule. In addition to the October 29th meeting, it seems to me we're going to have to schedule another meeting to discuss a whole time of day schedule and to discuss network geothermal. But I do want to make sure we give time for um, public comments here on any of these rates before we take a vote on them.
So we doing public comments, then closing the rate hearing, then doing the vote, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Any public comments? Peter Fendel.
I've asked him to unmute.
Yes, I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, we hear you.
Hi, Peter Fandel, 10 Shirley Street. A question for Laura. The proposed change you're voting on, what would this do to the average ETS customer that heats their entire home with ETS over the course of a year?
So you'll notice, Peter, that the ETS rate schedule was not included in this packet, and that's because that rate is not being decided at this meeting. That discussion and vote is scheduled for a future meeting. Is that the next meeting, Warren?
It would be
No.
the first meeting in October is when we're
Yeah.
going to talk about ETS and figure out
Okay.
how to handle ETS under the new system.
All right. I had it wrong. I'll be there then. Thank you.
Great. Don Kupka.
I have asked Don to unmute. All right,
You're
Don.
unmuted, Don, but we can't hear you.
Are you talking, Don?
No, you're muted.
I'm on, yeah.
No.
Yeah, we can-
Okay, now we hear you.
Okay. Okay. All right. 39 Devon Street, Concord. And first, thanks to all the board members. This is such a complex process that you're in the midst of. I don't envy you at all. Secondly, from a public perspective, kind of, the casual observer like me, we kind of left off with that presentation from the CMLP about the need to spend $10 million because we would otherwise not be consuming enough power during our peak solar hours, production hours. Now we're which went back to that presentation that included the beginnings of this very, very high rate area now where we're trying to discourage users. In other words, it's a mixed message. We were saying that we are generating so much solar saturation problem, and we're not purchasing power. We have no need for very minimal purchase power until from inclusive of that period of 3 to, I would say, 430 was or so, according to that chart that was presented to the town. Now we're saying, well, actually, we're buying so much power that it's costing us so much money that we need to discourage use then. And I guess from my perspective, it is a mixed message. I appreciate that you're trying to nickel to one member's point. You're trying to get things right down to the moment, so to speak. But the reality is, if on average we're covering our costs, why are we adding so much complexity to the picture to try to be really super precise? And there were certainly going to be days where, in that day, we incur some additional cost, but yet we're not going to adjust the tariff for a day. as they did, say, in Texas after that storm, and everybody, some people declared bankruptcy. It just seems as though this objective of incredible accuracy is counterproductive because it leads to so much complexity that we can't quite understand where it's going. I look at that and say this peak usage, peak power time, the power is going to be 50% more than it was an hour prior to it and an hour after it. And I just wonder whether that reflects reality. And I'm glad you're going to consider time of use for commercial in the future, because that was my first clue that there was something wrong here. If this actually reflects our actual costs, it would apply to all users, not only to residential users. Okay, thanks.
Jason or Laura, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I'll say something about the solar issue. I think that when we talked about the battery and we spoke at length about the solar saturation issues, we did stress that it was mainly during the month of April, sometimes April, May, sometimes September, October. Those are the times where we tend to have very mild temperatures and solar output tends to be very high. And when those conditions align, there tends to be very low usage. But those are not every day. Even in April, the weather changes dramatically. We may have very, very hot Aprils, we have very, very mild Aprils or very, very cold Aprils. We probably have 10 days a year where we are worried, but the outcome of what could happen if we push back more solar than we can consume could be so disastrous that it was worth discussing a very large and expensive battery, especially considering the fact that the battery could have so many other financial benefits to ratepayers in terms of peak shaving when we're not using it to address the solar saturation. So I understand that if you looked at that one day in April that was presented and assumed that every day was like that, there's kind of a mixed message, but we tried to focus on the solar saturated periods and explain that the time of day is intended to apply to the entire year with some seasonality. But yeah, I mean, if Brian or Laura or any others want to clarify that, feel free.
Yeah, I would just add that your first statement is absolutely right, Don, that this is an incredibly complex issue. And the apparent disconnect between the solar hours and the evening peak is because 2 years ago we had an annual peak between 3 and 4 p.m. That is driving why the consultant shows 3 to 7. Otherwise, it would have been 4 to 8. During that 1 hour, it was in the summer and it was very hot. And so the peak occurred between 3 and 4 p.m. During that hour, every ounce of solar generation that we could get was desperately needed. And that's why CMLP is willing to pay 40-something cents for that, because we needed it. But that's not the case in February or in November or in any other month. What we're trying to do is create a rate that's simple enough. It doesn't have a different price for every hour for every month, right? And yet there are going to be some irregularities within that, because when you try to make a generalization, it's not going to fit every single hour. So that's what I would say about that, is that in the spirit of simplicity, which is what I think you're promoting, we have these standard hours that, quite frankly, don't exactly fit every month.
Thank you.
Can I just add something to Don's comments, just to clarify further what Jason's point was about the days in April where there's overproduction. When he says disastrous effects, I mean, it really is. It was like those, when you have so much overproduction, it could potentially blow the system. So that's, just to put in perspective, when he says disastrous effects, like he means like we're completely out, everything's blown. And so that's not something that we could have, and that's why it was dangerous.
Great. Thank you. Let's go to a comment or a question from Kim.
I've asked him to unmute.
Hi, my name is Kim Slack. I am a heat pump coach. I work for the light plant, but I'm also a customer. But I want to respond to a number of requests that I've received as a coach, just to help increased awareness around the implementation issues that I think the light plant's going to face with this. A number of questions have come up to me about people reading that we are anticipating a large number of data centers that will be sapping energy off the grid and increasing rates. That's caused a lot of people to think about adding solar to compensate for that. When I look at the new solar tariffs, it makes me encourage people, if they have west-facing roofs, to put a lot of panels on those roofs to get that 3 p.m. to whatever, to maximize that. Is that what we want? It sounds like that's exactly what we want. And so we should be communicating that. The other question that comes up a lot is, should I opt out? And my understanding is about half the solar customers will benefit from the new rates, but half won't. So how would we determine, if you're a solar customer, how would you determine whether these are going to benefit you or not? So that's another question. And then heat pumps. I know, Laura, you've done some analysis around the fact that heat pumps should actually go lower. The cost will go down, the operating costs. But I think those are important to communicate. And then finally, my point is, my understanding is we've implemented a large battery, utility-sized battery. What impact does that battery have? Does that help lower the community's rates as well? So those are all points I would like to make in terms of how you think.
Great, thank
Also,
you.
I wanted to say, I really appreciate the thoughtfulness everyone has brought to this discussion today. And I also appreciate the complexity that we're
Hey, thanks very much, Kim. Let me comment on one brief thing before turning it over to Laura and Jason. On the analysis we've done, the majority of solar customers will do better under the new time of day rates than they are doing under their current rates. The 50-50 rate was when we were talking about setting compensation at a different level, but I think it's about more like 60-40. Most solar customers will do better under time of day rates. And some of the ones who theoretically won't do better can do better if they adjust their behavior to move some of their consumption out of peak periods. But how about Laura and Jason? Do you want to comment on any of Kim's other points?
Yeah, on the, sorry,
No, go ahead.
just on the heat pumps, the analysis I've done shows that it costs CMLP more to serve heat pump customers than it costs to serve regular customers. So I just want to put that on the record, because there are a lot of people out there who want to ask for special winter heat pump rates. Why shouldn't the rates be lower for heat pumps in the winter? So that's one issue. I think what Kim was talking about is that the analysis we've done that shows if a heat pump customer is now paying time of day rates, how are they going to do compared to how they were doing on the R1 rate? And that analysis does show that they will tend to do better under the time of day rate than what the old R1 rate was, because those heat pumps tend to run when it's colder, which is often at night in the early hours of the morning, when there would be a super off-peak price. So we do think that the heat pump customers will experience a lower rate than what they're currently paying. But I just also want to go on the record about the special heat pump rate not being a good idea for CMLP from a cost causation perspective.
And I'll just address the battery issue, just to say that we don't have a battery in production today, but we're pursuing one first, probably at the landfill, to address added solar that we plan on putting on the slope of the landfill. So that battery, we're hoping, will go live in 2026. And the impact would be a savings for all ratepayers because that battery would be used in addition to absorbing excess solar for shaving the peaks for capacity and transmission peaks and a little bit of energy arbitrage. And those savings would be split between the person who builds the battery or the entity that builds the battery and CMLP. And so when we calculate our revenue requirements the following year, the savings from the battery will be factored into that already. So it will bring rates down for all ratepayers.
Thank you. And Pamela Dritt, if you could unmute yourself. Thank you.
Hi, Pamela Dritt, 13 Concord Green. I also appreciate what you're doing, but I also, when CMLP has got to shoulder the entire sustainability process to Concord, decarbonizing the energy supply and fighting climate change. And we have, as a town, agreed to do that. But CMLP is the one that we have to use the rates to create the decarbonization for us all. So that, I'm sorry, I'm not eloquent. And we need to massively incentivize solar and heat pump. We need to make gas heat more expensive than heat pump, regardless of the actual cost for us, because otherwise we won't get the sustainable the sustainable results that we need. So we need to make it massively beneficial to solar installations for residents, and massively beneficial to electric vehicle charging, and more expensive to people who don't use electric heat, because otherwise we can't decarbonize the energy supply. And we need to incentivize battery in order to create our actual clean energy. Because there's no other way to do it. We can't, the fossil fuel industry is so effective that we have to do it. So I'm sorry, I give up.
No, thank you,
I need to write
Pamela.
better.
No, those are important points, and
Bianca is right
always to
here.
some extent a balancing act with how fast you go and how much you incentivize different technologies. And we certainly want to be encouraging people to adopt and use better clean technologies. Chris, you need to be unmuted.
Yep, I just did that.
Yeah, I just want to respond really briefly. I mean, I'm very sympathetic to what I just heard. We do want to get people off of gas. Unfortunately, we don't control the price of gas, and CLMP has to generate enough revenue to pay for our costs. We can't be a subsidy to the town or to the users. We've got to pay our own bills. And so, I think what we're proposing with the time of day does support increasing solar and batteries and using EVs in a responsible way. As a person who's got both an EV and solar, I feel like these rates are, in my interest, I guess. And so I'm happy with where we are, and I think we're doing what we can, and I think it's up to all of us as citizens to work on other means to help us get rid of the fossil fuels. We can't all do it at the CLMP level.
Hey, thank you very much, Chris. Can we have a motion? I think we have to get out of the rate hearing and then go back and vote on the rates.
So somebody needs to move to adjourn the rate hearing and return to regular session.
I move that we adjourn the rate hearing.
Is there a second?
Second,
And Bianca
yes.
and John,
Yes.
Chris. He's yes, Brian,
Yes.
and I'm a yes too. Okay, we are out of the rate hearing. We need a motion to accept the rates as shown with the adjustments that we've made. Oh, great.
I summarized the adjustments, and let me just walk through them and see if this is the board's.
Oh, good.
So there's four things here. Number one, anytime the time schedule is listed for time of day, clarify it in the following way. Peak is Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. Super off peak is Monday through Sunday, 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. And off peak is all other times. We're removing the G4 rate. That was the commercial EV rate. We're not discussing that or voting on that today. In the opt-out rate, we're adding that 1.038 cent rec charge to each capacity and transmission line for each bucket, and then remove it from the distribution so that the net result is the same cost. Let me just walk through the last one, then Bianca, you can weigh in. And then finally, in the SolarNet billing rider, update the description of rates and credits section to explain that the amount credited equals the distribution charge and the opt-out rate plus the 1.038 cent charge for RECs. Brian, is that your understanding? Okay. He's nodding.
The only thing I was hoping to add is in that net billing rider, some reference to the donate Rex.
But I don't think,
All right.
I think we gotta wait till we actually discuss that to make sure we have a program that we can be promoting to people.
And
Bianca,
Mm. I was just gonna say, I turned off my video and I can't turn it back on.
yep,
Not that you have to see my face, but in case that's important, I need to turn, I can't do it.
I can't do it while I'm sharing. Sorry, hold on. I can allow you to do it now. Okay, go ahead. You can turn on your video now.
No, I can't. Oh, there we go.
yes, great, thanks. So Bianca, do you have a point you can make?
No, I was just gonna,
It was
I
just
have
about
no
the
other way to highlight the glitch.
Okay, great, thank you. So, does somebody want to move this?
I move that we accept the rates with the noted changes from the packet.
Is there a second?
Second.
And Brian,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Chris,
Says yes.
He has two thumbs up.
yeah,
Yeah,
Bianca.
sorry, I keep unmuting. I keep muting myself,
Okay,
and I
then.
should stop doing that. But
Bianca.
it's a yes.
Just to be consistent with everything that I've said in the past, I have to vote no.
Okay, thank you. And I'm a yes. So these new rates pass, we will implement them. I again have to apologize that we did not get to the network geothermal discussion today. It's an important topic. We do want to address that. We also do need to discuss the whole schedule for implementation of time of day rates. We will need to schedule another board meeting. I leave it to Jason to figure out how we do that.
Yep.
We want to retain the ETS discussion in early October because folks have been waiting for that for a long time, and we want to make sure they have good advance notice of that because there'll be a lot of interest in that. Is there anything else we need to do before we adjourn?
Do you want to take general public comment?
Oh, yeah, good point. Yeah, we could take general public comments separate from the rate hearing. Are there any other public comments? No. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Great.
Second.
Great. And Chris,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Bianca.
Yes.
Thanks. And thanks everybody's patience and close attention to a very complicated topic. So thank you. Bye now.
Thank you.